Argyle's away day woes continued on Saturday. They were bumped back down to earth fairly heavily by a Blackburn Rovers side led by former Pilgrim Adam Forshaw. Two second-half goals from the hosts keep them in the playoff hunt. As for Argyle, it's a first defeat in February, but they didn't drop to the foot of the table and stay in those relegation places. This is Argyle analysis, and along with picking the bones out of Saturday's game, we'll also be previewing arguably one of the biggest games of the season against Luton Town on Wednesday night. We'll be hearing from the head coach Miran Muslic a little bit later on. First though, it's over to me and Aaron Cusack to try and make sense of what we saw on the weekend. A game, Aaron, that a lot of us, I think, went into with a bit of expectation. Well, a small amount of expectation. Blackburn, yes, in the playoff places, were managerless. Argyle, obviously, on a swell of momentum. But that's Championship football, isn't it? They're fifth in the table for a reason, and really they showed Argyle exactly why.
Yeah, I agree, Charlie. They were perhaps it was just a game too far from the brilliant week they'd had previously. And like you said, they going into the game, they were in the playoff push, and they just had a little bit too much on the day. And like you said at the start, we went into the game with optimism rather than we should be gaining points from this type of fixture. But yeah, just felt a little bit flat, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the point to be made, isn't it, really? That the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks actually even have been fantastic. And the highs of Liverpool and Millwall and West Brom are still fresh in the memory and great, and they're a good level. But, you know, this is a side that will be wanting to get up into the Premier League if they can, and they're having a great season.
They are, and they deserve to be in the playoffs at the minute. They're probably top of the rest. The top four are cut adrift and they're off and away, but they're currently top of that kind of mini kind of league that's developing towards the top end of the table. And they want to stay there. And we went up there, and their form, Blackburn's form going into the game was a little bit up and down, but they seem a team whether they either win or they lose. Yeah. They don't tend to draw.
That's their 15th win. They've had 12 losses and 6 draws.
And I remember last season it was similar. I think they got to third at some point last year where they had won 16 and lost 14. So they either are 3 points or nothing. And you know, unfortunately, from our perspective, they gained the 3 points on Saturday. I think probably on the balance of things, they deserved it. But I didn't think we were awful. You know, we've been awful away at times this year, but I just felt that we huffed and puffed and didn't offer anything of quality going in the other direction.
Yeah. Now, normally when you come up against an opposition player, you fear the worst. That used to play for you, you fear the worst, don't you? An old player, you think, right, they're going to score, it's written, all of that. I don't think many people had Adam Forshaw down as thinking like that, but he was the guy that got the ball rolling. First goal in 9 years.
9 years, unbelievable, isn't it? And, you know, it's just unfortunate that it had to be an ex-Pilgrim. And in all fairness to Blackburn, it was a really well-worked move. They switched to play well. It was a decent crossing. I think that I felt there was a slight deflection there, but that's a terrific little knockdown. I don't know who is it, Tyrese Dolan, but he's looped it into that far corner, and no one can do anything about that. You have to give him credit. It was a really good finish. And that kind of got them going in the second half, 10 minutes after half time. And, what was it, the 76th minute, they had to wait for their second goal. Again, good interchange, good little bit of movement by Cantwell, led to Tyrese Dolan in that heart of the penalty box to finish very convincingly. It was a good passage of play, and it just unstuck us at the back line and just took the game away from us.
I think we were saying on Saturday that it wasn't a game in which you felt a goal was coming. It was 0-0 at half time. There's very few chances. But I kind of had the feeling if someone was going to score, it would have been Blackburn, just on the balance of play, possession, territory, all of that sort of
I think
metric.
They moved the ball well. They moved it left and right. And like you said, whilst they didn't pepper Conor Hazard, it felt like they were always in control. And if the goal was going to come, it was going to be them rather than us. So we have to try and take some positives in that. At least I felt up until half-time we competed really well. We made it quite ugly, and there was nothing really in the game. It felt quite a boring game to watch. But unfortunately, the second half got the first goal. And then as the half wore on, we didn't look like threatening. We had the odd half chance. And it just felt like the game was perhaps just one step too far from the previous 7 days.
Yeah, the defensive record's been so good, but Blackburn did create these goals rather than anything
Yeah, they
else.
did, and these are little moments where they'll look upon what could be done things better. The two lines we've got, the bold line is where Michael Baidoo makes his run. So if he gets behind the ball, that's fine. But at some point, he'll ask himself, can I get close enough to actually stop the cross from coming in? The deflection suggests he got within touch and distance, but could he have smothered it better? And in recent weeks, we've seen how players are getting to the ball to deny the cross coming in, and Adam Force was on hand to kind of loop it in. So it will just be those little fine margins that will invite them to try and get more resolute into the next game. And this is the move. This is the second goal. Good interchange, but we got the two players in the middle highlighted, Todd Cantwell and Tyrese Dolan. So just watch Cantwell's movement. He just distracts Victor Poulsen, and Victor Poulsen has to make one or two decisions. He either goes with the runner or he stays where he is. In hindsight, he will probably look to stay where he is in the future because that's the most vulnerable area, that red zone right in the central part of the pitch. But I appreciate on that occasion, when it's a fraction of a second to make a decision, he got distracted by Todd Cantwell's movement across his eye line. And because he went across his eye line, he naturally follows the movement, and that created the space for Tyrese Dolan. So, when you look at it again forensically, the back line was slightly out of sync, but that happens when you're chasing the game a little bit. A moment materialises where you're not able to set. So we're talking fractions, but unfortunately they created almost like a 2v1.
On the game itself then on Wednesday, Musuch there saying it's bigger in terms of importance than Liverpool, and I think everybody would agree with that. Bottom against second bottom. Yeah. Like it genuinely feels at this stage of the season, certainly with the games to follow, the likes of Cardiff, Hull, Derby, Portsmouth all to play for Argyle in the next month, that if you can get a win or at least avoid defeat against Luton, you're still in that position of not being foot of the table, still being in contact with the other teams, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and you make a good point there. The key messages will be moving forward. Do not concede points to the teams around you, the ones that matter most. Like Blackburn away, had we got something, it would have felt a bonus, whereas Luton, Cardiff, Hull, Derby, all those fixtures coming up, you can't afford to give those teams points ahead of you, because what they do is they widen the gap or they go above you. In Luton's case, they might do. So like people will look at the Liverpool thing and go, well, from a global spectacle, that's a more attractive fixture. But the important game, the biggest important or most important game is Wednesday night.